The deadline is approaching. In just over 1 month's time, the chance to showcase your company's achievements by winning an IFW award will have passed. The IFW Awards is the industry standard for excellence and speaks volumes about your company. Perhaps your company will have its name in the IFW Hall of Fame by winning an award. The awards is being held at Planting-Bankman Gardens in central London, and to enter, all you need to do is visit the IFW Awards website at www.ifw-net.com and click on the Awards tab.
IFW Radio, another reason why freight is great.
Hello and welcome to another IFW news podcast with me, Damien Brett, and in a minute also Katarina Kerr, IFW's reporter, is going to be taking you through the most read stories of the week. Yeah, I haven't done this for a couple of weeks, so for any fans of my podcasts, I apologise, but I'm sure Kizzy has been doing a much better job than I could ever manage. I've seen him do a few video interviews, and I've heard some of the podcasts he's done in the past, and he's a pretty smooth operator when it comes to that sort of broadcast stuff, whereas I'm not, because I couldn't even think of a word to follow broadcast and had to use the word stuff and things like that, so I'm a bit amateur. So what have I been doing? Oh, I've been on holiday, which is why I haven't been doing the podcast the last couple of weeks. Had a very nice time, thank you, if you were thinking that. Got a bit of a tan, a bit of sun. And it was actually by a port, so that was pretty sad. Although I should say that I didn't pick that holiday because it was near a container port. It was just pure coincidence, I swear. So for regular listeners, you'll know I just pick a news story each week and just talk through the main points of it and give a few opinions if they're worth anything, and then Kat runs down the most read stories from the IFW website. Actually I'm not sure. See, this is me being amateur again. I'm not sure if I introduce myself at the start. And rather than re-record everything I've done so far, I'm just going to do it again, just in case. So I'm Damien Brett, IFW Chief Reporter. So that's done. And the story I was going to talk about today is that, this podcast is going really badly. I mean, normally I'm amateur, but this is the worst year, I think. But, I'll persevere. My story of the week is that Drury, one of the industry's leading consultants, analysts, and whatever else they do, has said that carriers cannot run their businesses profitably. I've made another amateur mistake. I've printed out the story to talk about, and I've printed it in the smallest font possible, and I can barely read it. Well, I hope it's because it's a small font and my eyes haven't started going funny. So I'm going to try and do this from the top of my head. Drury has firstly predicted that freight rates are expected to decline by 21% on the main east-west trade lanes this year, which is a big enough story in itself, because that's obviously quite a big decline, even though carriers did have a very strong 2010. But also, more interestingly, because we're always running stories on freight rates, and from those stories, it's obviously been a bad year for the carriers so far, or bad-ish year for the carriers so far. More interestingly, Drury has made the point that in 2009, when carriers made quite big losses, or the majority of them did, they kind of put an excuse in that volumes were declining because of the recession. So they were kind of caught out with year after year of single digit or sometimes double digit growth, and then suddenly they declined for the first time in the history of containerisation in 2009. And obviously any business that's supply and demand that suddenly sees demand drop off the edge of a cliff suddenly is going to be caught out, and it's not surprising they made a loss that year. But in 2010 they made very good profits, a lot of them record profits, and as well as that they stripped out their costs, which is part of the reason why they made such good profits. And so you'd think 2011, back to normal conditions, volumes increasing, they've stripped out a lot of their cost, that the carriers would be having a good year, but it appears not, and it seems like a lot of carriers are going to be reporting losses this year, even though volumes are up, although they have been, not as strong as they haven't increased quite as strongly as they have in the past, but they're still up. And what Drury points out is that, in fact, it shows the carriers this year have had an inability to run their business profitably. And as a result of that, it predicts shipping lines could report significant losses this year. Because, as I say, other than increasing fuel costs, the reason they haven't made any money is because they've just added too much capacity to the market, and really they've got no one else to blame on that other than themselves. So I just thought it was an interesting take on it, because I suppose maybe everyone else has already thought of it like that, but I hadn't yet. I just kind of assumed, cyclical nature of the business, it goes like this, but it's entirely their fault. There's no declining volumes to blame. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'll hand over to Katerina now, who's gonna take you through the most read stories of the week. And before I go, actually, I must remind you that the deadline for the IFW, the prestigious IFW Awards, is this week. So, go on the website. There's a tab on the top right-hand side of the page that says Awards. Click on that, and you'll find a list of the awards, forms, and how to enter. So there's some great categories. There's small and medium freight forwarder of the year, project forwarder of the year, MVOCC of the year. There's something for everyone. So take a look and get your company to enter. All right. Anyway, over to Katerina.
The fifth most read story of the week, with 824 views, is Asia-Europe carriers face weak volumes and low rates for the rest of the year. Container rates on the Asia-Europe trade are expected to remain at current levels of $850 to $900 per TEU for the rest of the year, provided carriers make no measures to withdraw capacity. In its latest market commentary, shipbroker ACM GFI said little had changed over the past 2 weeks and market sentiment remained dismal. On the Shanghai Northwest Europe trade, it said it saw the recent months' fall in value reflecting a weak sentiment in the market, that general rate increases are unlikely until the start of the fourth quarter. It said, however, despite the quarter 3 and quarter 4 trading at 10% and 16% premium, respectively, to the spot market, we are seeing more buying interest for these periods, with expectations that the market is starting to reach a bottom. So for more information on this report, you can go to the IFW website. In fourth place, with 871 views, is Carriers Negotiate Creation of New Alliance. Negotiations taking place between container shipping lines CSAV, MSC and CMA-CGM, looking at implementing joint operating agreements or forming a consortium on some services. In a letter to its investors, Chilean carrier CSAV said the talks, which have been taking place in Europe for around a month, are at an advanced stage. The CSAV services which are being negotiated include its 3 trade lanes from Asia to Africa, Brazil and the Mediterranean, West Coast South America to North Europe, and East Coast South America to the Middle East. It said the move was in line with its strategy to raise profitability and reduce the volatility of its results. And the carrier said it had already reached a memorandum of understanding which sets out the steps for the signing of definitive agreements. So the third most read story of the week, with 1,277 views, is Carriers cannot run their businesses profitably, claims analyst. In its quarterly container forecaster, Analyst Drury warns that even a surge in demand expected during the coming peak season would not lift the eroded freight rates on the Asia-Europe and Trans-Pacific trades, which are expected to decline by an average of 21%. As a result, the analyst predicted that container shipping lines would report significant losses this year. Other than the increasing fuel costs, the expected losses would be due to carriers' inability to run their business models profitably by adding too much capacity to the market, it claimed. And for more information on this matter, you can read the report on the IFW website. Now, the second most read story of the week, with 1,301 views, is the sad news of the passing of Matthew Good from John Good Shipping. Matthew Good was joint MD of John Good Shipping Group, and he died after collapsing while running the Humber Bridge half marathon for charity on the 29th of June, and he was just aged 32. The group's chairman, John Rutherford, and Good's joint MD, Alan Platt, said in a statement, "This is a terrible, terrible tragedy, and we are all absolutely devastated by this news. Matt was a kind, generous, caring, honest person with a great sense of humour," they said. Matthew joined the company in 2001 and was appointed the director of John Good & Sons and John Good Shipping in 2006. He and Platt were appointed joint MDs of the group earlier this year. And you can read his full obituary on the IFW website. The first most read story of the week, with 1,369 views, is also very sad, with the sad news that Penny Darnbrook has passed away. Tributes from the UK logistics industry have been paid to Penny Darnbrook, communications manager for DHL Global Forwarding UK since 1998, who died recently following a heart attack at the age of 52. She was fondly known to many people throughout the industry due to her role, which linked her with many people both within and outside the company. Her warm and caring personality made her memorable and much loved by many at all levels, from warehouse to boardroom, and from key customers to suppliers. She was a caring, generous person who will be missed by many. So that concludes this week's news roundup, albeit a rather sombre one, but hopefully that won't set a tone for the coming week. So for more news, visit ifw-net.com, or alternatively you can take part in industry discussions by tweeting us at twitter.com/ifwnet, by liking our page on Facebook, which is facebook.com/newsifw, or you can join our LinkedIn group. Just search IFW Cargo and you'll find us.
IFW Radio, another reason why freight is great.